Change is inevitable. And one of the best examples of this is seeing the history of cities. Whether that's going from wooden houses to tall metal skyscrapers of the day, cities have constantly been changing in order to meet the demands of people and that time. But what if I told you that modern cities have actually been going in the opposite direction besides progression? Even if our cities do look modern, futuristic, and complex, that does not mean they still have many problems that we have to deal with today. And one of its biggest problems is car-centric infrastructure. Car infra- Car-centric infrastructure is essentially prioritizing cars as the main method of transportation, leaving other transportation methods such as public transit completely out the window in the dark. This can be a serious problem considering the extensive history that cars have caused in health and environmental problems that continue to happen to this day even. And as a civil engineering student, this is very concerning because the main part of my education still revolves around cars. Even at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, the university I attend, CE 321, a transportation class, still deals with cars being the main method of transportation and a main unit of our education. And even despite this, professors still acknowledge all the consequences cars have on our society today. And this is all the more reason why modern cities should prioritize public transit as the main method of transportation, and we should remove as much car-centric infrastructure as possible. Because car-centric infrastructure causes major health problems, environmental problems, and takes up massive amounts of space that we can use to stimulate the economy or other reasons. And to understand this shift, we really need to go into the perspective of someone who's actually being affected by these issues. This is people who live in cities. This can be your friend, mom, aunt, anybody you know, because this could eventually be you, and it would be very valuable to know. So, firstly, if you were to live in these cities, you would notice serious health problems because cars can cause serious long-term health issues in the long run. Now, when cities prioritize cars as the main method of transportation, right, this forces people to use cars a majority of the time. Why wouldn't they? If they're going to play this game where cars are the only resources they're really available to, of course they're going to use it. So the only problem with that is cars really provide no type of exercise or health benefits at all. Cars are actually very bad for you because you just sit down and that's the only movement you have to do to get to work. While other types of transportation, such as walking, biking, or subways, involve some type of exercise. Walking, of course, you get your steps in. Biking, of course, you start biking. And subway, you have to walk to the subway to even get to your main method of transportation. And with this in mind, we can use the Boston College article about US neighborhoods walkability relationship to BMI, which states how adults reporting that lived in more walkable neighborhoods experienced a decreased risk in obesity and a decreased risk in long-term health problems. This makes sense because if they get more exercise in, they get more healthy, right? And in a time where time is valuable, why not get your exercise in as your daily commute? Because we need it more than ever, because we're experiencing more health problems as time goes on. And to most people, they would just say, what if I just walk to work every once in a while? Then I'll be fine, surely, right? And this still doesn't take away from the awful emissions cars produce. Cars produce so much terrible emissions in one area, in urban areas, that it becomes concentrated, right? And if it becomes concentrated, that will decrease the air quality. And this is the same air that you and me breathe in. We wouldn't want that at all, because obviously that creates serious health problems that we have to face later on. So is it really fair for everyone else to suffer just for you to have the convenience of a car? I don't think so. Everyone else should be healthy, not just because you want to ride a car and it's slightly quicker. We should prioritize health over just convenience. And if the long-term health effects don't get you, then the short-term could. Cars pose huge safety hazards in cities and can even potentially cause you to have an injury or even death. The Journal of Transport Geography by Smith and others reports that millions of people have been killed in cities ever since cars have been around, and billions have been injured. This data makes perfect sense considering drivers witness so many distractions as they drive. When you're in the car, a simple blink can cause an accident because you have constant movement around you, whether that's from bikers, animals, pedestrians, it does not matter. And no one should be able to get injured just from a driver making a simple mistake, right? If you wanted to get a hot dog down the stand and someone makes the mistake of accidentally blinking, you should not be harmed for just being hungry. That's not your fault. Where public transit actually gets rid of this. And if we look at the traffic safety for all road users, thousands of people get injured every year just because drivers can make one silly mistake, right? Compared to subways, where it's a controlled environment underground where you can't just accidentally walk in front of it. Walking has been safe for years and years. We've been doing it since the dawn of time, and biking has bike lanes where people know where the bikes are coming, right? For roads, people have to cross it. They don't have a choice. That leaves potential for serious problems to happen, as we see in car accidents that happen all the time. And to most people say, how are we going to be able to change this? Wouldn't this be too expensive? First of all, our safety should never be too expensive. And actually, if we remove a majority of the car infrastructure and replace it with businesses or other vital infrastructure, cities would have be way better off economically. Now, if we look at Scholmer's Journal of Impact of Cars on Cities, we can see that uh, ever since city planners have been prioritizing cars with parking, streets that take up these massive amounts of space, it actually is taking away space from the city that can be used more efficiently. What I mean by this is spaces can be used for businesses, it can be used for hospitals, it can be used for police stations. All of this can stimulate the local economy. And if we look at the IPC Article 6 assessment report in Chapter 10 Transport, if so many people are getting sick, that takes away from your productivity, right? It doesn't help you if you're sick all the time and you can't go out and spend using that local economy, right? It makes no sense. So, in order to improve economically and have a better quality of life, we should actually remove that car infrastructure completely, which biking, walking, and public transit can do. Walking, we already have that type of infrastructure in place with sidewalks, biking lanes already exist, and subways exist underground, so it takes away no space. So we can have all this improvement in economic value, and we can have this quality of life of more hospitals and police securing us, making sure we're healthy. It makes no sense not to switch. So why take that away from yourself and make sure you have to make sure your needs are known? And together we can make an impact. If our needs aren't enough for our representatives in government, we need a new one. So whatever you do, we need to make sure this doesn't become an idea of self-betterment and it actually becomes a reality. So whether that's making a rally, making the word be known, any type of help is valuable as long as we get our message out and we can start representatives making legislation towards public transit for city planning and get rid of car-centric infrastructure completely. Now I leave you with this. Is your car worth more than your neighbors? Is your car worth more than your friends? Is your car worth more than your family? Well, to the thousands of people who lose their loved ones every year, it is. It is way more valuable. And they would take it back in a second if they could. So I want you to know that all these losses can come to an end if we start prioritizing people over our own convenience. Thank you.